Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in. What up? What up?
How's it going, guys?
I can't answer for everyone else, but it's going good for me, Josh.
Well, listeners, let us know how it's going in the comments.
Oh, fun. Okay, so today we're going to have, I hope it's a good conversation. We kind of started this before and we're like, we should record some of this. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't have any solid opinion, solid facts on any of this. This is us talking through a subject and kind of figuring out what we think about it. So bear with us on that.
Flexible.
Yeah. So we actually, we need you to be pretty flexible with us. Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about flexibility, obviously. And even in relation to the whole concept of being immortal, eternal, deathless, whatever it is, whatever that term is that we've been talking about kind of a lot. We've had a lot of guests on talking about it. We've kind of waxed on poetic about it. But this concept of flexibility, in many different ways. So physical flexibility in your body to keep your body young and able to continue aging while keeping its youth, if that even makes any sense. But also flexibility in the mind and in your will. In that same vein of not dying, and how important it is to kind of stay flexible with what you think will happen, what needs to happen, how things go, how you think about things, if you're willing to learn new things. I don't know. That's kind of the premise. Josh, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good summation of just the premise of it. But we've touched on this a little bit at times, but really the conversation was just like, hey, if you stop being flexible to adjust your opinions, your thoughts, your patterns in your life, do you in a very crude way become almost like useless or unable to achieve, like you put up a barrier that says this is where I'm at, I'm not moving from here, I'm not changing from this, and therefore kind of cut yourself off from the ability to reach perfection or immortality or
remain deathless.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm deathless.
It's true.
Right.
I have a perfect score right now.
Great. Actually, my sister doesn't have a perfect score. She's just been resurrected.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
That's kind of funny. But some of this comes with the concept of purpose and destiny and calling and some of those things too, because really my question is, and again, I'm not solid on this. I'm flexible and I'm willing to hear other opinions. I wonder, like, if we get so stuck on one thing that the Lord has told us to do, even if circumstances change and that's no longer a possibility, but we're still unwilling to move from that, does it kind of render us, essentially immovable and then useless? Like, if we're not willing to bend with the way that things go, because so many times I've witnessed it in others, the Lord will say, here's something that is happening, or here's something that could be happening, be prepared, or do this, this, and this to make it happen. And then because of other people's decisions and free will, or other people's prayers, or whatever it is, circumstances change, and then that doesn't actually come to fruition. But if you simply hold on to that and decide you're going to be immovable from it, even if the Lord's like tries to shift you, then does it make it so you're kind of rendering yourself useless? You know what I mean? And if you've just hit a wall and you won't turn around and walk away from the wall or go around it, what are the implications there? And this all sounds very harsh. As it's coming out of my mouth, it sounds really harsh. I don't mean it in that way. We were also talking about before we were recording, this is kind of what sparked the conversation was my, I guess she would be my niece-in-law. Last Christmas, she asked a question that has had me stumped. And it has to do with what is one like immovable truth spiritually. And I'd like to say it's this, or that based on the doctrine that I was raised with or that I have learned along the way. But getting to know the Father more and more, so many things that I thought were completely 100% solid, he's shifted and shown like other perspective and shown how, yes, it is this way sometimes, but sometimes it has to be this way too. And just not having that, like this whole set of this, and this is always true no matter what. I don't know. That's kind of what spurred this a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that is that's a really good question to ask and ponder. And in this journey of like learning to be flexible, learning to learning to move with things. Like I just recently had a conversation with a childhood friend, and I just told him, I said, whether or not it was explicitly said to me, somewhere in my childhood, I took on an opinion of if it came from the pulpit, it was correct and I couldn't question it.
Mm.
Whether or not it was ever told to me in those words, that was what my, child brain was like, oh yeah, like we'll take that. Um, and but now what I'm finding is there's a lot of things that I'm asking questions about from that, from that time period or from those belief systems. And some of them I still come to the same conclusion as what I was told.
Sure.
But I think it's that process of questioning, that process of walking through it, that has given me the ability to be where I am now. And I think that really ties into the flexibility that you're talking to. Like, can you hold things as truth until you're given a different perspective and be willing to say, okay, like that served me for a time and now I move on. And I think some of it really just comes down to what things are we looking to be absolute? Because I think the things that are absolute are way fewer than often we want to believe.
Mm.
And I think part of that is because God creates in polarity. Like he creates the full picture when he creates, I think, from where I'm at right now, I think that he creates the full picture. He creates the possibility for everything to be there. And then maybe part of it expresses itself one way and part of it expresses itself the other way, but he created the ability for the full thing to be there. And so if we lean too heavy on one side of the polarity, then we're leaving out half of the picture. And that can be a very rigid and unbalanced way of walking with the Father.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that this really what it boils down to. I think especially spiritually, we've been on this journey of like exploring and experiencing different perspectives spiritually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all see through our own filter or our own lens. But being able to step away from that and look at something from a different perspective has been so eye-opening, just for me and my journey. And Josh, I think you would probably agree, right? This is kind of
Yeah.
where we've been for the last year and a half or so. But in that, I've almost been forced to be flexible,
Mm.
because if I come with my doctrine and what I believe and what I hold true, when someone else comes with their perspective and what the Lord has revealed as truth to them, then I will immediately discount that. And what I've really come to is that I know that at this point in my walk and my journey and who I am, I don't have the capacity to hold all of what the Father is. And if I just shut off the possibility for him to be something different to someone else, then I'm 100% putting him in a box and saying, you can do all the things in my life, but nothing else. And who am I to say that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it has just wound up kind of through this time presenting itself in so many other ways. And being flexible and hearing other opinions. You know what I mean? Like listening to hear and understand someone as opposed to listening to rebut and prove them wrong. I think it's such a valuable thing, and it allows you to be stretched.
Mm.
And that's what we're talking about. I mean, flexibility, it has to do with regular stretching, right? How do you become flexible? It's regular stretching and moving parts of your body that could become stiff.
Yeah. Well, even when you're talking about like the expression, like being expressed in certain ways, like I think about, um, it's my current belief that I'm not sure any one of us have the ability to be the entire expression of who God is,
Mm-hmm.
and that he created, like, I have a piece to express and you have a piece to express and all of our listeners have a piece to express, and it's the whole collective coming together that brings the fullness of it. I can express fully everything I have to carry,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that I carry the fullness. And I know there may be people who disagree with that, but like that's my current belief, because I think we were created for community and we were created for each other. And I think it's the wholeness that I bring and the wholeness that you bring and the wholeness that all of our listeners bring, that bring the bigger picture, that bring more of it together. And to me, that's just like this really uh, amazing aspect, but also really frustrating, because it can be really frustrating to acknowledge that you need someone else to walk with you.
Right.
But
Yes.
I believe that's how we were created.
Yeah, I do too. Even years ago, before I kind of started more on this like mystical journey, whatever you would call this kind of vein of faith. Um, when I was still in like just the normal traditional American church, I remember number one, I was one of those weirdos who like heard from God, and people would go, "You can't hear from God." And I'd be like, "Oh, I do."
I don't know what to tell you.
I know. Well, I know it wasn't me. Um, but I remember him giving me the imagery of a puzzle. And especially when he was kind of revealing to me like one big thing he wanted me to do. And it was, about finding the pieces that connect to your piece. But now, as I'm kind of further down that road, I, when we seek out these other perspectives that don't align with ours exactly, it's actually kind of a beautiful thing because you can zoom out. So even if you could see the full picture of what it's supposed to be, if you can take those other perspectives, you can kind of zoom out and see where they fit into that big picture, even if they're not directly connected to you. You might have a piece or two in between you. You might have 42, you might have 40,000. I don't know. but can you see where they actually fit? And that's a valuable, valuable thing. And I think we've talked about this probably close to, I don't know, 1,000,000 times.
Feels like it.
I know we talk about it all the time, but I have gotten to the place where I'm so thankful and so grateful that other people hold these other pieces so that I don't have to try to fill in those gaps when I'm not equipped to fill in those gaps.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And I think it connects to the original concept of like the flexibility, because if you have to be willing to be flexible to allow someone else to come walk beside you in that, because they're going to have a different expression and a slightly different way of outworking it. And if you're rigid and no, this is exactly how it's got to be done, like that's really tough. Like that can be a really tough place to be. And so I think it's like, Kim and I have talked a little bit about like practicing flexibility, just in not even in our spiritual walk, but just in like normal life. So like brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand,
I
and
did that.
like driving to work in a different way than you normally do, because what your body is seeking to do is find automation, to find the best way to do it as quick and efficient as possible, which is amazing that that's what your body is looking for. But what it does is it takes you out of the doing things consciously um, way,
Mm-hmm.
which it starts to build that path firmer and firmer and firmer and firmer, to where it becomes really hard to change it. So the things that you're automating in your life, and maybe there are things you want to automate in your life, be really sure that that's something you want automated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when we go back to this deathless concept, um, I think this is one of those things, like we've got to be kept malleable,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, I do believe that as long as we allow him to, the Father, the Creator, the Lord, whatever you want to call him, will continue to work within us. But as circumstances change, he will also change what he has for you. And if we can remain malleable, remain flexible, able to take another route, then I think that's when he really is able to partner with us and use us well in
Yeah.
the earth. And it is my goal at this point, anyway, to kind of remain flexible.
Mm.
And even as we've talked about this, if we talk about being immortal, like your body has to be in have certain abilities, right?
Yeah.
And I went through a time of like being hardcore against yoga, right? Because it's from Eastern religion, it's making these poses to these different gods, communicating something. But as we're talking about this, the flexibility in your body is so very important as well. Josh, you were saying something about earlier, like signs of aging and mobility.
The lack of rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch an older person walk, or even just someone who's not as healthy, like when they walk, their hips will stay in one place. But if you watch a healthier person walk, then there's like a natural sway, a natural rotation built in it. And you see that even in nature, like things that have a lot of energy, like tornadoes or storms, or just things like that in nature that have a lot of rotation. There tends to be a lot of energy and power in that. And so your ability to rotate is kind of your ability to like stay flexible and poised, and to be able to adjust to different ways and directions. And um, yeah, it's really intriguing. Like even just this weekend, I was working with a practitioner on my hip flexibility, because I was noticing like that when I was walking, my right side would move, but my left side would almost stay in one place. And so there
Mm.
was something locked inside that needed to move and adjust and flex to allow that. And then some of it can just be like consciously walking and paying attention. What are my hips doing when I walk? Like, and it doesn't have to be every single time you walk somewhere, but like starting to build the like noticing what's going on in yourself. Like, yeah, I just think that there's there's a lot of like little bits and pieces that it just takes some bringing a little bit of awareness to that can really make a big difference.
Right. I would totally agree. I mean, even just in our conversation before we started recording, we were talking about this and flexibility. And I was really thinking about my body and how important it is that it stay flexible. This weekend, I spent 2 days like refinishing an old canvas that I had. Um, I just wanted a different piece of art and I didn't want to buy a new canvas. And this one was hanging in the garage for years. So I took this and I was refinishing it. And I don't like have an easel. I'm not a practicing artist or something. So I used a table and I put it on there and I was bending over and painting this weekend. And I will tell you, after 3 or 4 hours of doing that, I like try to stand up straight and I'm like tense in all of the ways. And I kind of don't want to untense my body because like really is kind of sore.
Yeah.
But even as we're talking about this today, I'm like, I really do need to put some practice into this, into intentionally keeping flexibility
Mm.
in all of the parts, like even in my wrists or my neck or my ankles. I don't know, even in some of those smaller pieces that we don't always pay attention to the movability in them unless there's an issue. But some of that, I mean, a few months ago, weeks or months, probably a month and a half ago, I don't know, whenever it was, Josh, you were having issues with your like bicep, shoulder, elbow kind of area.
Yeah.
And immediately when it can't move, you know it,
Oh yeah.
right?
Right.
So it is like,
Instantaneously.
right. So can we make some awareness and make sure that those parts are able to be moved? So not even, again, not just physically, can we do this even in our own will, in our mind, and even in our spirit? Like, are we able to let the Lord mold us and change the trajectory if needed?
Mm.
Are we able to do
Yeah.
that? Or are we fighting it on all fronts and refuse to move?
Mm. That's
And
good.
I think in order to be most effective in the kingdom, I tend to think that we need to be flexible and we need to allow ourselves to be malleable and we need to be able to be taking a detour if that's what we need to do so that we get out of a rut.
Yeah. I agree. Mm.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I think that's a really good place to wrap it up, but I think this has been a good conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'll be curious if we get any feedback. Maybe some good stretches.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for sticking around. Listen for new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Find us on all social media platforms by searching for Market Mystics. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Visit upperroomcd.com where you can find more information about the hosts, projects, and guests. Go deeper by booking a coaching appointment focused on redefining identity and wealth in your life. See you next time.